Welcome to the Catholic Table Talk podcast. This is where everything Catholic is on the table. New episodes Thursdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on most podcast platforms. Here's your host, William Sauber.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode here at Catholic Table Talk podcast. This is the podcast where everything Catholic is on the table once again. This week for episode 128. Thank you again for just plugging along with us every episode here at Catholic Table Talk. The show would not be possible without your continued support, so I appreciate that wherever you're listening, in the US of A or in the other 12 plus countries that we have listeners in. Today's episode is brought to us again by Dr. Katrina Wynn. Dr. Wynn is a physician and medical doctor. See how she can help you and your family out at mdkatrina.com. Also, she can be found at mycatholicdoctor.com as well. Today, we'll talk about, and this is kind of, I think, a very cool topic to talk about this time of year, is just why do we have all these like sacramentals? Why do we have all these signs and devotions and all that? I mean, this is what really the Catholic Church really stands out from other churches. And yeah, like why I always get asked this: why do the Catholic Church does this? Why do they have this sign? Why do they have that devotion? What does that do? And of course, still being young, I have no of them either. So this is a good episode just to dive deeper into the faith. Today's guest will making his Catholic Table Talk debut is Shaun MacAfee. He is a convert to the Catholic faith and lay Dominican. He is a founder and editor of epicq.com. Again, it's epicq.com. It is his website. He writes for numerous Catholic publications and resources, including the one that I watch and actually have been on the show a lot, from the National Catholic Register. And he lives in Louisiana, and he has his wife and 6 children. So he's a very busy guy, and he's gracious enough to come on the show today. So let's welcome him to the first time, Shaun MacAfee. So Shaun, thank you again for coming on the show this morning.
Thank you. Really excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, and like I said, it's really very exciting, I think, for this time of year, just because it might be something you might address at the holiday dinner table or something.
Yep.
And I guess I should show you the book too right here. This is his book, and there we go. So yeah, very great book. And also one more thing before we get going is this episode, folks, will be on the YouTube channel, Books to Get playlist. So go to the YouTube channel, look at playlists, and look at Books to Get, and this episode will be in there. So Shaun, let's just kind of start off with the story of writing the book. I always ask the editor, the writer, of how long did it take? What was the inspiration behind it? Was this something that just kind of someone brought up to you, like your wife or a friend, or was it just kind of something that you felt like God was calling you to do?
Yeah, I would love to feel like maybe God was calling me to do it.
Okay.
And that would be icing on the cake. Of course I don't pursue a writing. This is my 10th book. Wow, I can't believe it. But I definitely never pursue a book without some sense of care for the topic, right? So obviously I'm a convert. You read it there in the introduction. And so I am, of course, curious about all the things that Catholics do still. I've been a Catholic since 2012, I think.
Okay.
So I'm going on this Easter. It'll be 12 years, which is just amazing. God's mercy is just wonderful, right?
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'm grateful, shout out to my wife who also converted 9 months after me. So we've got a great Catholic household. And of course, you said we've got 6 kids, and they're going to look around the house and see, iconography or crucifixes, or we pray the rosary or holy water, or different devotions, right? Divine Mercy Chaplet or the Rosary, or just any number of things. Maybe the Angelus. We'd like to start praying the Angelus as a family. So of course I'm curious about all these things. I got to be able to, talk intelligently to them, to my family. I've got to really be able to talk intelligently about them to myself. If I'm going to really embrace something, this is just me. If I'm going to jump in the deep end, which I usually do, I've got to know how deep it is. So really a lot of curiosity came out for me. But all of this really started whenever I wrote a little book for Catholic Answers. It was a part of their 20 Answers series. I'm not sure if your listeners are familiar, but there's just these little itty bitty thin books. It's about 18,000 words, which sounds like a lot, but they're really like 60 pages. And they answer 20 questions of apologetics on a specific topic. So I pitched an idea about relics and sacramentals to, actually, I pitched two separate ideas, but they said, let's combine them into one, relics and sacramentals. And so that's the name of the book, 20 Answers, Relics and Sacramentals. And that took me, I had a quick timeline. I had to write that in like a month and a half. So it required like really intense research. I had to be really thoughtful about my word count, of course. So I had to be really concise and cogent and neat. But of course, while I was learning all of that, I discovered so much more than just what belonged in that book. And I had this enormous corpus, this body of material to draw from that I really wasn't done with, for sure. And as a writer, you're always looking for the next best thing or the next thing you can pitch to a publisher. And I knew that I had a bit to work from there. So I took it to TAN. I'm grateful that I, was at bat and got the first pitch into a home run position. They accepted the book, but I pitched it a little bit differently than it came out. You just showed viewers the book. In fact, I don't even have my copy yet, which is kind of sad. Everybody for the promotionals got it before I did, but so boo-hoo. But I pitched them a really simple idea. I pitched them, TAN also has this manual series, like they've got the compendium series, and that's a little bit newer, quite a bit more posh. But I pitched them this manual series, which would have just kind of been a basic like how to, maybe somewhat of the what and the how, but significantly shorter, a bit less intense, I'd say, for the editing process. And it could have been a bit more straightforward. But then they came back to me and they were like, hey, I'm not sure if you've heard of our compendium series, but they kind of wrote me an email as if they had to sell me the idea. And I mean,
Really?
one look, and I've got a copy of, Compendium of Marian Devotion and Compendium of the Miraculous. Get those books, listeners, if you don't have them already, especially the Marian one. They're just as gorgeous as this. And so, long story short, I saw the kind of quality and the amazing amazing artistry that would go into this book. And like I said, they pitched it to me and they were like, what do you think? And I'm like, of course I'm on board. This is like a dream come true. I can't believe you're trusting me with this. Right. So I of course said yes. How long did it take to write? There was some material to draw from, but of course you don't want to, I might have the copyright. Me and the publisher share the copyright. Really, it's kind of a two-person relationship with the material in that smaller book. So I had that 18,000 words to kind of go with, but like I said, half of that is relics and the other half is really quick answers on sacramentals. So I could kind of draw from some of that material, but I really had to start over completely. I had to make a new outline for exactly everything to go in this book. So of course, I know you're going to ask later, but it's got broken out into really 3 sections, and it's like, what are sacramentals? And then it talks about sacramental signs, right? Those are the actual objects we're all familiar with. And then I kind of skip over exorcisms because nobody really needs to know about those except for our clergy. We do talk quite a bit about it in there, but then I talk about sacramental devotions and then the other parts of sacramentals. So we kind of zip through that. How long did it take? I'd love to tell you it was quick. I think I signed the contract last March. And they wanted me to finish this book in order to be the Christmas book this year. So I'd say maybe March 22, and I finished it sometime this year and in March. So I guess it took me 12 months, which is yeah, and it might seem rapid, but that's every day going at the reading. That's other books I kind of had to slow down on this one because I knew they have certain terms whenever you're publishing a book, like for the interior layout. And this one, of course, if you show your readers, if you open the book, it's got graphics all over the place. It's got call out sections with text box. It's got plenty of art. Every single page is adorned with sacred art or some sort of image of a relic or a sacramental or something like that. Yeah, look at this. It wants to see your body. Yeah, we're at a bad point here because it's got to show up on there without the staging in the back. But anyways, it's just really beautiful. So I had to kind of take that into consideration. They call it the river. The river of text as we're kind of swimming around all these images. And I had to kind of think for myself, how would the publisher see this next 1,000 words? So in other books, I would, just bang out 1,000 words a day after reading, copious amounts on, I don't know, the saints or theology or whatever I'm writing about. But with this, I had to be pretty meticulous in how I organized my paragraphs. I had to make sure word count was more or less equal on each chapter. But yet at the same time, I kind of had to be exhaustive without kind of boring the reader. And that's kind of the writing that I try to go for anyways, right? So 12 months of labor, and then maybe the editing process, I was actually really surprised. Tan takes care of me really well. They didn't have a lot to change. They ran through there, and maybe credit to me, maybe credit to them, but I'm really glad that, usually the editing is the most laborious part of a book. And that's just kind of boohoo on me because it's like a purgatory for writers because you're having to do what they call axing your beauties. You have to take what you thought was really good material and either delete it from the book or change it, and the editor knows best. So trusted them with the book, and look at it. It's absolutely gorgeous. It reads really well. I just couldn't imagine any more of a gift to my readers, my anybody who's been following me for years. This is a hallmark item of mine. Of course, it's perfect for the holidays. It's kind of an expensive book, but this is like gift material. This is a coffee table book for years to come. Of course, it's filled with just tons of wonderful information on sacramentals and everything you want to know and things that you'd never even heard of. Which maybe we'll get to in this podcast here. But that's the story of writing the book.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, like you said, I like how you shared it. It's a coffee table book because it's a very, I like the cover. It's a very hard cover. It's not very long, and like you say with the other books, I mean, 18,000 words. I mean, it seems like a lot, but it's not. And just for me, writing college papers like every single week for class, I used to think that 1,000 words or a few thousand words were very long, but once you get writing, you have to edit words out and only place what's most important in there. And and then you go to the tutors and they're like, oh, you gotta take that out, you gotta take that out, and you're like, but yeah, so no, very cool. And like I said, it is a short book. Like I said, maybe it's a little expensive, but I mean, it's well worth it. I mean, this helps you go deeper in the faith, and this is, to me, I mean, what every Catholic should know. I mean, every Catholic should have single around the house.
Thank
So
you.
yeah,
And it's got pictures. I mean, who doesn't like
right.
pictures?
No, I love pictures. So, and like you said, you have each chapter is the same amount of words, and I think that's huge. If you have maybe the first chapter of books that have like 2 pages, you're like, oh, it's not too bad. And the next five chapters have like 15. You're like, oh, this is a long night reading now tonight again. But no, it
Right.
looks. I mean, I have not read it yet, but it looks very, very interesting. Just sitting here in my lap. So, and hopefully you can get a copy for yourself as well.
Yeah.
Very
One more
soon.
day, one day
Yeah,
more.
there you go. So yeah, we'll just kind of keep going here, Sean, and just kind of give us a understanding of the scriptural roots of various sacramentals. I mean, I don't know, maybe some people, as you're writing this book, came to you and said, "Hey, I got a question on this one, a particular one or two." I think I know when people ask me about sacramentals, it's more, I guess more devotions, that type of stuff.
Right.
I mean, it comes in various ways, I guess.
Right. Yeah. So if we're speaking about scriptural history, we're probably also alluding to the objection to Catholics that we're breaking the second commandment, or maybe even the first commandment, right?
Right.
Specifically, you shall not put any other idols before me. And what do? We as Catholics, we make images of the cross with Christ on it. Right. So to some anti-Catholics, to some who might even just be anti-Christian, they might say, hey, look, you're not even obeying your own commandments there. And to kind of clarify real quick, like the law was done away with when Christ conquered death on the cross, but the 10 commandments are really eternal, which is why Christ, whenever he says, which is the important commandment, this is a part of his New Testament theology or philosophy, so to speak. This is a part of the Christian way of life, is to embrace and to continue in a new way of thinking about it, not just as a law, but as a law of love, the Ten Commandments. So that's kind of a sidebar, but really, when we're talking about the scriptural roots of sacramentals, we're answering that question: why do Catholics create, quote unquote, maybe graven images? Why do we bow to them, right? I mean, how many times have you seen a crucifix and, a large crucifix in a church and, knelt and prayed in front of it or bowed to it or something like that? So why do we do that? We can get to all of those questions, but really there is truly an Old Testament. There are some Old Testament stories to point to, some miracles that have to do with the physical objects that God has commanded them to make, but also God has commanded the physical objects within the world, the animals that he's created, the objects of creation, to be cast and formed. The best way, the best example is the tabernacle. Right? God commanded two angels, two heavenly creatures, the cherubim, to adorn the mercy seat on top of the tabernacle. And so they did. So there's that. God also commanded the Israelites, I believe in the book of Judges, to create a large pillar with the image of a serpent on it. And anybody who crossed over while looking at this was healed. And then, of course, there's the story of Tobit and Raphael, where Raphael convinces him to be healed through the ashes of a baked fish. So these are all images in the Old Testament where God did command his people to make, quote unquote, graven images of his creation for the purposes of, divine interactions, divine miracles. And then, of course, we see these in plenty in the New Testament, especially with, exorcisms are a sacrament, right? Those the second types of sacramental. We really don't see much in the Old Testament with exorcisms because Christ has not yet given his Spirit to the apostles in order to pull demons out of people's places or things, right? In order to protect and set aside certain things for holy use. We see that, of course, in that story of Tobias. It's kind of a seldom story, but the reason we don't see men and women doing it is because it just wasn't part of God's plan. But we see it obviously in massive and plethora in the New Testament, right? We have all the stories of the paralytic, or the woman who with the welts, or the blind man, being rubbed with dirt. God chose to use dirt to put over this man's eye. And then, of course, we have the stories of St. Peter, just touching his cloth amongst those who were sick. They were immediately healed, or the lepers. So there are plenty. There's a large basis for biblical roots of Christianity, or biblical roots within Christianity for the use of sacramentals. But of course, like anything with our faith, the practice of sacramentals evolved. And I'm not sure if I'm over answering your question or not, but right, sacramentals in the first several centuries, they actually would, and this is part of the exciting thing of what I discovered when writing this book, because I'm expecting like an evolution. I'm expecting like somewhere in like, the intellectual boom within the church was actually after the church fathers. It was in the Middle Ages, whenever we were a bit more organized as a civilization. We had many different types of thinkers and places that people were thinking about these theologies. We had the growth of religious life, and of course we had a more structured church. Excuse me. So we were able to kind of think about things other than how on earth do we convert the Romans and stop being persecuted. So we were able to focus on things like sacramentals, put definitions to them, and then of course the popularity of devotions grew. So as all of that really happened, we baptized things that we saw from pagan practices, either by habit or by will, and we converted those. We baptized them into a way that we can use them as Christians. And the model that I always like to use, and I don't think I coined this, but there's a riddle of truth within most pagan religions where they're pointing to divine things, but they just don't quite have it right. So it is not incorrect for Christians to take something that is kind of closer. They can use it as a teaching tool, or they can, if they've got an image of their God on one of their medallions, we can put the image of our God on our medallions. Or if they have an image of their God, why couldn't we have an image of our God on our item of victory, which is the cross? So as these people like grew and matured over generation after generation, of course, the intellectual prowess of the church built in our understanding of what we were doing without saying, hey, look, we can't have anything. We can't have anything physical or material. Exactly within the construct of your first question, what's the basis of this? We were able to mature as a church and understand and kind of really put a definition on sacramentals. So then, of course, we have three types. For readers, we have signs and devotions, and those are things like your rosary, your Sacred Heart devotion. You have blessings. Of course, we've been doing blessings forever. I don't even need to reach back into the Old and New Testaments to convince anybody that, you know, the church has been blessing and the people of God have been blessing since the beginning of time. And then, of course, exorcisms. So there's really the basis and kind of how we got to where we are, at least up to the Middle Ages.
Right, and that's a great point to go about the pagans. They put their gods on meadows and stuff. So I mean, why
Right.
can't we? So
In
that's
fact, it's kind of fun. I hate to interrupt, but
no,
a lot of people think that like even things like a medallion, like they think that that's like a new thing. But truly, in the catacombs of Domitilla, right there in Rome, as far back as the 15th century, we have documentation where archaeologists were pulling up these first century coins that were restruck. They were reheated and restruck with the image of Christ or the image of a saint like Saint Christopher or Saint Peter on them. And it's just wild to me. People were doing that in the 2nd and 3rd centuries. And guess what? We're still using metals
right.
to this day. You know, we're still doing it. We still hang them around our necks as signs of our faith in order to encourage us and sanctify us.
No, yeah, I have I did have a medal. Now I believe it's on my nightstand. I have another medal on my neck on me right now that you can't see. But yeah, I mean, it goes back to a long way back, and like you said about the just the images and stuff too. I mean, now now correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean those come from the books that Protestants and non-Catholics, and yet I mean they still read those books, correct? It's not like the books that they grew out of the Bible. I mean,
Right. It's not the
the
Deuterocanonicals.
right,
It's right there within the canon, the complete Christian canon, so to speak, the
right.
66 books that even Protestants accept.
So yeah, I mean it's right there, and you just have to put that out to people who bring up to the question, because yeah, it's still to them. I mean, for them, it's still in there as well. So yeah, and I mean, just again, I think like you said, I mean, exorcisms are more for it's just more for the clergy, but I mean, it's good. It's still a good thing to talk about, and still a good thing to know about why Catholics do it and that stuff as well.
Yes.
So yeah, very good. And and again, I just like to make this one more quick thing about the book. I mean, and again, if you think, oh man, like I don't want to read about this, devotion or this sign or this thing for very long. Again, like each chapter is the same amount of reading, and it's a very packed-filled book, and it's very short. And again, you have to read about one certain thing that maybe you don't want to read about for you know 15 pages. It's all the same one, and you can move on to the next one. And
That's right.
yeah, very cool.
Yep. You can jump
Awesome.
around and find your favorite topic and just go
Mate,
straight there.
I mean, to be honest, Shaun, that's what I do. So, yeah, I've been known to do that once or twice, even in college. So, um, yeah, just kind of last question here before we kind of wrap it up, Shaun. It says on the back of the book here, this book is for converts seeking to immerse themselves in their newfound faith, as well as being as lifelong Catholics wanting to deepen their faith. This book is an invaluable resource on the journey to heaven. I guess I just want to get your take on what you mean by that, and then yeah, I guess what
It's
what
that's the sales pitch. No. Of course we believe in what the book presents, right? So sacramentals are the indispensable part of our faith. If you ask anybody out there, you go ask 100 people on the street, I promise you 70, 80, maybe even 90% of them, if you say, what's the first image that comes to mind whenever you think of Catholicism or you hear the word Catholicism, they might think of the Pope, they might think of a priest, but chances are they'll probably think of a rosary. They'll probably think of a crucifix. They'll probably think of something like that. They might even think of holy water or a specific devotion that they've heard of. Maybe they won't think of the physical rosary, but they'll think of the devotion of the Holy Rosary, right? So these are indispensable parts of the faith, and sacramentals. It's not sheer coincidence that it shares the word sacrament, because the definition of the sacramental is a sacred sign that points to the sacraments. They dispose us. So whether you've got your scapular, or you got your cross, or you've got a crucifix or a holy medallion, or you touch holy water every day, or you pray your rosary, or you do any number of the devotions that are included in the book, or maybe the ones that aren't included in the book. These are sacred signs that point us and dispose us to receive the sacraments more often. What does that mean? That means that if we practice using and believe in the sacramentals that we adorn our house with, maybe adorn our own bodies with, right? Wearing your medals or crucifixes. The more we see them, the more we practice with them, the more that we see them and assent to what true meaning is there. Not just that there's a nice crucifix in the house, but that I believe that Jesus died on a cross for my sins and I am forgiven. Then that might point us to go to Mass. That might point us to go to, that might bring out sorrow for our sins and take us to confession or something like that. So these dispose us, and these enhance our desire to go to and receive the sacraments, which of course leads to our sanctification, and hopefully one day we can enter heaven.
So amen to that. Just one more, just one thing on that too. Like, someone asked me, like, why do you have pictures of Mary in the house? And it's the same thing. It's maybe because you see her and you want to say a rosary thing, or you see the Guadalupe image and you think of the story of Juan Diego, and you ask for his intercession. So yeah, it's a good reminder just to, if you're feeling called to do something, then it's a good thing to have for sure.
Yes.
So we only got a couple minutes here left, Shaun. I know you gotta go as well. Just last pitch on the book. Where can people get it, and where can people find you if they want to contact you?
Thank you for that. Right. So the first place you should probably go is to your local Catholic bookstore. Ask them to order 50 copies.
Only 50?
Yeah, only 50. Catholic bookstores are, those are small businesses within the church that support families all over the place. So go there. Of course, the book is on Amazon. You'll find it there. But Tan Books coming up. This is obviously, we pitched at the beginning of the episode. This is the holiday gift for Christmas 2023. They will be doing a sale pretty soon. It is a $60 book, but I'll just let readers in. That price will come down on a generous discount. So that's at Tan Books, TAN Books, and it's Compendium of Sacramentals.
Awesome. Yeah, and like I said, this episode will be on most podcast channels, but also on my YouTube channel. So go down to the playlist section, find books to get playlist, and we'll be in there as well. So it's
Awesome.
more easy to have people find this episode and re-find the book as well. Shaun, thank you again for your time today. Hope to have you back on the show sometime, and happy holidays, and God bless you and your family.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
I want that Shaun MacAfee. It was his first time on. I think he did really well. Comment below if you have questions or feedback on Shaun. Love him, have him back, like I said, and get his book. Like I said, sales coming up fast on Tan Books, or head to your local Catholic bookstore and tell them to get it in stock. So until next time, we'll see you same place, same time on Catholic Table Talk Podcast, the podcast where everything Catholic is on the table.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Catholic Table Talk Podcast, where everything Catholic is on the table. Don't forget to subscribe to Catholic Table Talk on your favorite podcast platform to get new episodes delivered directly to you every Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern.